Thank you all for coming this morning. Please silence your cell phones if you have them on. My name is Sebag Tatiosyan. I'm with the Armenian National Committee of America, Central California. And I'm honored this morning to introduce the MC for today's program. She has been in Fresno for a very long time, has strong roots in the Fresno area. Please, ladies and gentlemen, give a round of applause to Debbie Poochigian.
Thank you, Sebag. Arshanapadif Kahan Hayder Yevsirli Hainagitsner. Kassabian bor im Hayden Shad Zoravorche. Height Isor, Manavant Isor, Garavore bor Kanimapar, Mer Haynet, Haid Enli, Lezu of Assem. I'm trying here. Inasuna Uta Dari Arach, Mer Johovorta, Godur Vetsan, Turkin Serkova, Isor Menk Havak Batsenk, Hunerelu, Ident Hishadaga. Okay. Good morning. I'm Debbie Poochigian, and I am so honored and pleased to be the Master of Ceremonies this morning. On behalf of the Armenian National Committee of America, Central California, I want to welcome you to this year's annual flag-raising ceremony. We're here today to remember the victims of the first genocide of the 20th century, to honor our survivors, and to pass on to our children and grandchildren the importance of remembering our history and remembering our past. So this morning, to start us off with the invocation, it's my pleasure to introduce Reverend Father Yeghia Hairabedian from St. Gregory Armenian Church of Fowler for the invocation.
Park Badir եւ երկրպագությունի փակցումս հոր եւ ոտի փոքրին սրբո այժմ եւ միշտ եւ հավիտյան սալդին սամեն մեր սիրելի երկնավոր հայր քո հապանություններ կմարսանեն քեզի որովհետեւ թուն բահեցիր քո սիրելի հայ ասկը թարերի վեր մինչեւ հիմա եւ գաղութեն որ քո սրկը միշտ մեր վրան լա քո վիրավորված հայ ասկը Tun es որ մեզի պիտի բահես և պաշտպանես, tun es մեր երջանիկ հույսը և գաղութեն որ մենք միշտ ունենանք բադիվը լալու հայ ասկին զավակները բահե պաշտպանե ասկիս հայոց և հավատացյալ ժողովուրդդ Amen. Our dear Heavenly Father, we always praise you and glorify you. You have kept us and given us many dignities and many honors throughout thousands of years of Armenian history. While other nations have gone into oblivion, into history books, you have kept your hand of love and protection upon the Armenian people, the Armenian race, until now, and we pray that you continue to keep us, preserve us, the wounded Armenian nation, keep us until the end of time. We praise you and glorify you now and forever. Amen.
This morning, we have Faten, Kassabian, to sing the national anthem, followed by the raising of the flag of the United States of America. Raising the American flag will be Marine Corps veteran Charlie Waters of Clovis. Can you And now someone who's been very active in the Armenian community and was the organizer of this flag-raising event for many years, Hygo Ohannessian. Hygo will be singing the Armenian national anthem, which will be followed by the raising of the Armenian flag by the Homenetmen Scouts. Thank you, Faten and Hygo. Special thanks this morning. I think you can be seated. I think we're good. Thank you. For the ones that have seats. Special thanks this morning to the Sounds of Freedom Military Band for being part of today's program. Thank you very much. It's my honor to take a few minutes, not a lot, but to introduce some of our elected officials that are here today and some of the representatives of our electeds. And I'm so pleased that they could be with us today. But first, before I do that, I would like to introduce former U.S. Ambassador to Armenia, John Evans, is here with us. Thank you. Please between the 1 and 2 o'clock hour. Ambassador Evans will be on KMJ, and also this evening at Pilgrim Church will be part of the program starting at 6 o'clock tonight. 6:30 tonight. Okay. We have Fresno County Supervisor Andres Borges. I'm gonna go through them. They're here. Please wave, stand up, wave. We have Fresno County Supervisor Andres Borges, Fresno City Councilman Clint Olivier, Fresno City Councilman Paul Capriolio. We have the State Director for the Office of Senator Barbara Boxer, Tom Poochigian. Representing Senator Tom Berryhill, Mary Alice Kalushian. Representing Assemblyman Jim Patterson, Caitlin Ryan. Representing Congressman David Valadeo, Jane Metcalf. Representing Congressman Devin Nunes, Jose Avila. Representing Congressman Jim Costa, Ian LeMay. And representing the Mayor of the City of Fresno, Georgianne White. At this time, I do want to take just a second to thank the County of Fresno for a resolution commemorating, thank Supervisor Borges with my colleagues at the Fresno County Board of Supervisors. We had a resolution yesterday commemorating the 98th anniversary. You know, if this event had been held 40 years ago, we probably would have struggled to find Armenian speakers for the morning. But we have come a long way. We are everywhere. I just want to tell you, we are in Visalia, we are in Glendale, we are here in Fresno. And I'm so pleased now, joining us this morning from the South Valley is Amy Shuklian, the mayor of Visalia. A native Visalian, Mayor Shuklian was first elected to the City Council in November of 2007. During her first term, she served 2 years as vice mayor. Following her successful re-election in 2011, she became mayor. Please welcome Visalia Mayor Amy Shuklian.
Thank you, Debbie. Wow. What an honor it is to be here. I just want to start with a little excerpt. I had the distinct privilege and honor of being able to record my grandmother before she passed away. Of course, we all know the stories that we've heard, but many times they haven't wanted to be spoken about. Well, when my grandmother was 98, 2 years before she passed away in 2002, she was finally able to talk about it. And recently it all came flooding back when PBS, I hope we all saw Orphans of the Genocide, because my grandmother could have been one of those children pictured in the orphanages. What time Mommy and me came, man came to take me. That man first take me 1 hour. I cry, I holler, I want my mommy. Man go bring my mommy. Man put me on horse and wrapped me. Go couple of mile. 2 men sit outside, both go over there, bring my mommy. That time, my mommy take off all of them, and she gestured like taking off, they took off all of her clothes in front of her child. All of them, the clothes. My mommy says, please, one time, I kiss my child. Mommy go over there, I'm over there. Mommy says, please, drop her, one time. I know you kill me. Please, one time, drop my daughter, I kiss her. That time, shoot my mommy. At the end of that, my grandma said, you understand, Amy? And I know what she meant by did I understand. Did I understand her broken English? And I did understand that. But what I don't understand is how 98 years later, the children, the grandchildren, the great-grandchildren of people like my mother, my grandmother, are sitting here today with signs saying, please recognize what happened. Last year I had the distinct pleasure and honor of happening to be in Washington, D.C. at this time. That's where I met Ardy, that's where I met Paul, and I guess that's how I ended up being here today. And I did something that I never imagined in my life I would do. I protested in front of the White House for the Armenian Genocide, for the recognition of the Armenian Genocide. And not to get too political, but I'll let you know, I voted for President Obama, but I was out there protesting because I'm disappointed in him in this particular case, that there is no recognition from him regarding the Armenian Genocide. In closing, I just want to say, I think recently we all heard in the news when the president was in Israel, and the big news at the end of the day was when he was leaving, actually what I read was he was on the tarmac of the airport discussing with Mr. Netanyahu, and he brokered a deal for Israel to apologize to Turkey for a 2010 incident in the Gaza Strip where Israel bombed a flotilla, Turkey's flotilla, and it's caused a lot of friction between the two countries. And so the big thing was, at the end of this trip, Mr. Obama was able to broker this deal, and Mr. Netanyahu apologized for Turkey. Well, to Turkey. Mr. Obama, President Obama, I don't know if you're watching Channel 30 tonight, but if you are, it's time to broker a deal with yourself and with your conscience and with Congress and recognize what happened and validate what happened to my grandmother, my grandparents, my aunt who died in the deserts of Syria from starvation. It's time to recognize it. Thank you.
Excellent. Our next speaker this morning is well known to many in the Armenian community of Fresno. Edward Megerdichian arrived in Fresno in 1956. He had left Syria and the American College in Aleppo to study at Fresno State. One of the original founders of the Armenian Community School of Fresno, after a long career in education, Edward is a retired math professor who is described by a former algebra student saying, "I believe he is one of the best math teachers I have ever had." Please welcome Edward Megerdichian.
I will not be talking about mathematics today. Այսօր ես հայերեն բերի խոսիմ ձեր բոլորին հետ, սիրելի բարեկամներ։ Հարկամեծար հանդիսաբար Դեվի Poochigian, Բադվարժան հոգևոր հայրեր և կառավարական ներկայացուցիչներ ամբողջդ միասին։ Հանուն Ամերիկայի Ֆրեզնոյապնակ Սողոմոն Տեհլիրյան պատգան հայ տարի անձնախումբին ողջունեմ բոլորդ։ Հարամվական խնդրություններ մեկ դիցկած ենք այսօր։ Հայաստանցի արտասահմանցի գոյություն չունին այսօր։ Քաղաքական հագասություններ հերացուցած ենք մենք այսօր մեր օրագարկեն։ Եվ բոլորս միասին մեր ամբողջականությամբ ունենք մեկ մտածելերում ոգեգոչել հիշադակը մեր ապրիլյան եղերնի զոհերում։ Ֆրեզնոյի քաղաքապետարանի արտոնությամբ հայ մարմնագրթական ընդհանուր միության երկսեր սկաուտական գազմը բարձրացուց երակույն դրոշը հայտարարելով արար աշխարհին, թե իր հայրենիքեն հազարավոր մոոններ հերու ապրո հայ իրականությունը գա եւ իր թադին բանջադերն է։ Դրոշը քունավոր գերբացներու երիզներ չի ներկայացներ միայն, այլ նաեւ անգխորտանիշե ասկերու պետականությունը իրենց պատկանող հողամասերուն եւ ժողովրդին։ Անոր ցալքելուն ներքև կա նաև քաղաքապարախոսություն, որոնց մով բոլորս այսօր վարուրված ենք։ Ինչպես ունենք պատմություն, մեր ժողովրդին Թրոշն ունի իր պատմությունը։ Ռուփինյանց հարստության անգումեն հետո հայ ազգը գործընծուց իր pedagogiությունը եւ որպես հետևանք Թրոշը։ Հիշադակության արժանի է հոս կարդալ Բաբեսյանի պատմության հայ Թրոշեն հետևյալ բարբերությունները։ Հովհաննես Բաբեսյան Ֆրեզնոցի մներ, փոլորիտ ալտերևս ձանոտ եւ դբակրած է քանի մկրկեր զինք գոչեին քալո համայնակիդարային ակ կամ որ խելացի մարդներ Հովհաննես Բաբեսյանը։ Փարիզի հայուսանական միությունը ասկասիրական փուրն սկացումներ է մղված 1885-ի Վիկտոր Հյուգոյի խորգավորության ասկային Թրոշով մասնակցելու համար թիմած է հայ Ղևոն Տալիշյանի խնդրանով անգե հայ Թրոշի քույները։ Հայր Ալիշյան առանց պատմական որոշ փաստերու սոսկ հիմնվելով հայաստանյա գեղեցօդոնագացության վրա ըստ որուն զադգի առաջին գիրագին կգոչվի Գարմիր գիրագի, երկրորդը Գանաչ գիրագի, երրորդ քույնը իր կողմի անդրված Ջերմագը գազմած է հայ Թրոշը, որ հետակային իբրև ասկային պաշտոնական Թրոշ գիրարկված է հնչագյան գուսակցության կողմեն։ Անգևերջ հայր Ալիշյանը ստեղծելով քույներու երրորդ դասավորությունը դված է թեղին Գարմիր եւ Գանաչ, կամ գաբույտ Գարմիր եւ Գանաչ, առնելով զայն ձիաձայնի քույներեն։ Ահա այս Թրոշագը ընդունված է հայրուն կողմէ եւ կործածված համաշխարհային առաջին պատերազմի ընթացքին, որովհետեւ երբ 18-ին ռուս համայնավարները գրավեցին նոր Նախիջևանը ու աշխատեցան բռնի գերբով մտցնել հայ իսպաների իրենց բանակի մեջ, հայ իսպայից միությունը փոխեց այդ բռնության թեմ, առարգելով թե Լենինի ռովարագային համաձայն իրենք պիտի երթանգրվելու Թուրքին թեմ։ Ռուսերը դեղի դվին եւ որբեսի անոնք զանազանվին, բանջեցին անոնց մե որ հայը գրե իրեն թևերուն վրա հայկական քույներով պատասպարված լայն երիզներ եւ ահա այդ ադենները գողավսի մեջ ջանչծված թեղին Գարմիր եւ Գանաչ քույները հայ Թրոշը գրեցին հայ իսպաները իրենց թևերուն վրա։ Այդպես կգրե Հովհաննես Բաբեսյան։ Թարեր ամբողջ շարունակապար ջնջվեցանք։ Գողոբուդի եւ արևանքումներու ենթարկվեցանք մենք է մեր հայրենիքը դարձանք գտանգով։ Այցելու բռնաբեդություններ հատկապես Օսմանյան բռնաբեդությունը մեզի մերգացուցին մեր ասկային հբարդութենեն եւ սրբություններեն։ Իր հոգնության բդուղը չեր վայել երմշագը եւ փամվոր ալևս։ Երկի եւ բարի երբեմնի զվարթ երաշտությունը ողբերգության եւ լացագոցի աղմուկի վերածվեցավ։ Փևերային ծրդության մատնված էր հայունը սեղծակորց անջարը եւ իր ամբողջ էությունը։ Վախկոտ, երկչոտ, դգար եւ անգամ, այդպես գերեվար հայը, անչուներ ողնահար եւ գանքուն գենալու ոտքեր։ Իր թևերը թույլ էին եւ անզոր պաշտպանելու իր հողը, դունը, ընտանիքը եւ մարդկային իրավունքները։ Այս երևույթը հայոց աշխարհին, հայոց մթակնած երկնքին, անթրոշ մեր երկրին, բայց խափուսի էին երևույթները, ներքև գուդակված, հարուրամյան մարդկային արարքներուն, վրեժ խնդրության, ասկակիդակցության սաղմերը գորիզ կգազմեին եւ պատրաստ փրկելու։ Սնած իր նախնիկներու քաշագործութենեն ու ներշնչված անոնց ազատական շունչեն, արթնցած էր հայուն վրեժ խնդրության հոգին, եւ ահա Երևան հանդիսացավ հեղափոխական հայը։ Բարձեցին անոնք իրենց թուր գեծագին, գրագու հեղեղ սփրետիշ թշնամու գլխին, վերակրավեցին իրենց մեխլված բաբենագանդուները, վերահաստատեցին մեր սրբությունները եւ ողանչեցին զանքերը գրգին եկեղեցու քմփետներեն։ Մոխրացած հայուն օջախը ասկսավ վարիլ Գարմիր, հայոց մթակնած երկինքը հակավ մեդաքսյա բատնուջան գաբույտ, և սերմանողին հասուն ծորյանի տաշտերը հական նարնչակույն, և ինչ հրաշադեսիլ երևույթ, հայրենիքին երկրագամարին վրա բարձվեցավ աղթության տրոշ գարմիր գաբույտ նարնչակույն։ Այնուհետև ունեցանք հայրենիք և պետականություն, տասնյակ դարներու ընթացքին անփոխարինվեցավ, հալածվեցավ համայնավարության տրոշով, ներկայիս անթարցյալ գշողշա, բայց գիսված հայրենիքի վրա։ Թրքացած Օսմանցին գշարունակեր հալածանքը, ըլլա քաղաքական և կամ տնտեսական փեմերու վրա հայուն թեմ, Կերկանի մշապատ առաջ հոս էին, Սակրամենտո էին, հայերուն թեմ աշխատելու համար դարձյալ։ Անգթիմի ամեն միջոցի, կործածելով նաև թուրքաջու ազերբայջանցին, հալածվելու համար հայուն, ուր որան փույն մգերդած է դակու։ Դերզորի անաբատներուն մեջ հրգիզված սերունթին մնացորդացները, և պրադիչուրերու մեջ խեղտամա եղած սերունթի մնացորդացները, նետվեցան որպանոցներու մեջ և գամ որդիացան խղճապարո ընտանիքներու կողմե։ Այդ բադսպարվածները հասագարին և եղան հայ ժողովուրդ, արթուն են ասոնք իրենց երիտասարդ զավակներով և քաղաքանացած։ Այսօր ապրիլ 24-ի համայն աշխարհ թող լսե ցայնը այն սերունթին, որ ըտ Օսմանյան թուրքին պետք չէր որ ձներ երբեք։ Խոսք ուզեմ գարտալ չորրորդ սերունթեն մեկ փոքր աղջկամը ոտանավորը, որ ինքը փանաստեզուհի չէ, բայց այս կուկար սրդի խորքերեն։ Գքրե այդ անգլերենով։ 1915 never again. We want an apology in pen. 1.5 million are dead, and many more without a dime to spend. Why do you deny it? The pain and suffering our people went through. Husbands and fathers were captured, and mothers and children died in the absence of laughter. Nothing but ashes after. Many didn't matter, money didn't matter, and hopes and dreams shattered. Land was taken away unless you had enough to pay. Thousands fled, but millions bled. Orphanages overfilled. Young boys forced to become men to fight for Armenia. Youngers forced to grow up fast, hoping that this wouldn't last. But the Turks wouldn't allow it, striving to take every bit, wipe out every Armenian, wish that none of them will be alive. This poem is for all who suffered, to families that flustered. Turkey, just an apology, if you don't mind. Signed, Karlina Megerdichian. Վերջապանոտ, մենք այսօր փոլորսալ, հայ թադի գամավորներ ենք, և գհրճագենք մեր թադը, խոսքով և բարձելով մեր տրոշը ամենուրեք, ուրախ ենք լսելու, որ Board of Supervisor-ները ընդհանրապես չանքերով մեր երկու սիրելի բարեկամներուն Դևին և Անդրեասին բանացևը անցուցին, որբեսի ջանչեցվի մեր ցեղասպանության ոչիրը թուրք կառավարության կողմէ։ Այս երեք պատահեցավ շնորհակալություն ձեր երկուքեն։ Եվ հարկանք ապրիլյան մեր նահատակներուն, և թող անոնք իմանան մեր նահատակները, ողջ աշխարհ հայուն պիտի չգարթա նախարինք։ Շնորհակալ։
I'd like to read a quick quote from The Sound of Music that goes like this. Is there a more beautiful expression of what is good in this country of ours than the innocent voices of our children? I would like to welcome the Charlie Keyan Armenian Community School for a musical selection. Welcome.
Paizen
are students from the Charlie Keyan Armenian Community School, Fresno. Thank you. One of the main reasons we're here today is to make sure that our children and grandchildren remember our history. And I mentioned this yesterday. When I was the age of these children, my father would say, Achjigas, Chamornas, Dagas, Chamornas. And that, I feel, is my job now. I have 3 grandchildren. My job is to pass on to my grandchildren, and I just ask each and every one of you to pass on to the younger generation. They are our future. Pass on our history. Let them know where we came from. Our next speaker has traveled some distance to be with us today. Originally from Boston, Massachusetts, Ardy Kassakhian moved with his family to California over 20 years ago. Settling in the Los Angeles area, Ardy's parents decided to make their home in Glendale, where they would raise Ardy and his 2 brothers. Ardy attended Glendale Public Schools, where he excelled academically, graduated from Glendale High, and attended, we're not going to hold this against him, but he attended UCLA, where he studied and received a Bachelor of Arts degree in history. Ardy's passion for public service and enthusiasm for the political process led to his run for the Glendale City Clerk job in 2005. In a field of 9 candidates, Ardy's landslide victory made him the youngest person to ever hold public office in Glendale. Please welcome the Glendale City Clerk, Ardy Kassakhian.
Thank you, Mrs. Poochigian. I don't know what the UCLA or the comment was, considering I was a classmate of your son's at that fine institution. My wife, who's a Trojan, reminds me that everyone is entitled to one mistake in their life, though. And we were students of Dr. Ohannessian, Professor Ohannessian, Dr. Ohannessian's wife. Reverend Fathers, dignitaries, Your Excellency Ambassador Evans, fellow Americans and friends, it's a pleasure to be back here in Fresno, all the way from Mangal Khazad, Glendale, from Nagorno, Glendale. I bring you greetings. Fresno is a place that has a very special place in my heart and in my family's. When we first moved to California, my father, who was an environmental chemist, Dr. Kassabian, would take us on family vacations, and our most favorite trips were the ones that we would take out to Fresno and then go over to Kings Canyon and to Sequoia National Park to marvel at the wonders that God has created on this earth. But we would always stop off in Fresno, and we would make our way to a cemetery to pay homage at a gravesite of a man by the name of Solomon Tehlerian. Now, I was too young. I was too young at the time to fully appreciate the significance of Fresno as a community in the history of the Armenian people here in the United States. But I remember as we would drive by the streets, my father would say, "That's a statue of David of Sassoon. That's Sassoon David. This is where Anchanik Pasha lived in his latter years. And this is the grave of Solomon Tehlerian, who carried out with his own hand the death sentence of a military tribunal that had been handed down to one of the orchestrators and chief architects of the Armenian genocide, Talat Pasha." And so we'd lay a flower down at that grave, and then afterwards we would make our way to the national parks. So it is it is wonderful for me to be here. It's wonderful for me to share this day with you. There are numerous events, obviously. Glendale is well known to the Armenian community, but I had to come here for yet another pilgrimage in my adult life, And it was very significant, particularly because I'm reunited with Mayor Shuklian again in April. Last year we were in Washington, D.C. together on Capitol Hill. And we are gathered here today on an April morning for a solemn occasion. And it is only appropriate that we gather on an April morning because April is a month that has so much significance for so many, for different reasons. April is a month of renewal and rebirth. It is when nature renews its promise of life and trees are in bloom. And nowhere is this renewal of life more stark than here in the bountiful fields and orchards and groves of Central California, where so many of its sons and daughters have toiled to make it grow and flourish. I remember as a child being excited because April signified the beginning of baseball season. It meant that we were all that much closer to the end of the academic year. And April 15th, 1947 was when a young African-American man from Pasadena named Jackie Robinson took the baseball field for the Brooklyn Dodgers, changing the game of baseball and this country and the way it looked at race in a way that would never be reversed again. And as I've grown older, obviously, April has taken on a significance because of tax season and taxes being due. But it is also a time of year when we mark one of the most important holidays in the Christian tradition, a holy day that is the essence of our faith as Christians, of God's promise of resurrection and renewal. And for many Armenians, the Easter holiday to which I refer is a special holiday, not only because we were the first Christian nation to adopt Christianity as our state religion 11 years before the Roman Empire did, not only because we are descendants of Noah, but there's also the traditions that remind us of our grandparents, the smell of choreg bread, of families gathering together in one place in security and comfort, of competitive Easter egg battles between young and old alike to see who is triumphant. We cherish this because it is such an important part of our heritage, because of that Christian tradition that we have as the first Christian nation, and because of Noah's Ark, which came to land on our holy mountain of Mount Ararat. But April is also a time when we take pause and remember one of the most horrific chapters in our history. It was on April 24th that the young Turk regime, the inheritors, the predecessors to the government of Turkey today, gave their marching orders to eradicate Asia Minor of its population of Armenians, which had lived on its ancestral homeland for over 2,000 years. Overnight, the Armenian political, cultural, educational, and business leaders were rounded up and executed, and the people who had lived in the land for millennia became victims to the final solution to what the Turkish leaders called the Armenian question. That question mark was replaced with an exclamation point, and finally the Turks hoped that they would replace that exclamation point with a period, an end to that story. U.S. Ambassador to the Ottoman Empire, Henry Morgenthau, wrote, quote, "I am confident that the whole history of the human race contains no such horrible episode as this. The great massacres and persecution of the past seem almost insignificant when compared with the suffering of the Armenian race in 1915, end quote. Over 1 million Armenians perished. Lands where crusaders had landed and were greeted by the princes and kings of the Armenian kingdoms as they came to the Holy Land lay bare. Lands where Romans and Persians had tried to subjugate the Armenian warriors outside their fortress walls lay in ruin. Lands through which Marco Polo traveled and documented his experiences with the Armenian merchants on his way to the Orient and back were devoid of any presence of that people. They were all void of this ancient, proud race known as Armenians, and nothing remained but ashes and dust. But some survived. Some, like my great-grandfather Hygo Ohannessian, a pharmacist from Ovacik, a small town just outside of Istanbul, who lost 60 members of his family on a death march through the desert. Ohannessian made it out alive. And he wrote down his experience, and I guess this is partly unique because so many made it out alive but did not document their memories. I commend you, Mayor, for documenting your own grandmother's experiences. He wrote his memoirs and they were recently published. We were fortunate enough to have my aunt translate them to English and have it published through Hairabedian University a few years ago. I want to share with you what Hygo Ohannessian wrote as a foreword to his memoirs that he intended to have read by his children. He writes this on May 1st, 1919, just after the Great War had ended, in the town of Bethlehem. Now that the world's turbulent storm has abated and the world war has come to an end, and mankind is gradually starting to resume its normal and peaceful condition. Now that the major powers are gathered in Paris to have their peace talks that would eventually translate into concrete measures that would safeguard and ensure permanent future peace and stability. Now that finally the gloomy, clouded skies have lifted from the much tortured and martyred Armenians, and the survivors will shortly have the good fortune of seeing the fulfillment of their long-awaited dreams. Now it is opportune for me to provide a detailed, thorough account of my experiences. For after surviving the deportation, witnessing terrible events as a soldier on the front, and military imprisonment, and after the tempestuous events of the past 5 years, I am now alive in the peaceful city of Bethlehem, surrounded by my beloved ones. Hence, now I would like to put down into writing the main milestones of my life, from 1900 to this day, especially those bloody events pertaining to the exile and the unending deportation road shared by every uprooted Armenian. And this is the part that still speaks through the generations to me, and I pass on to you. I have great hope that by reading these life memoirs, my children will learn some lessons for the future, namely, instilling in them the desire for boldness and diligence, strengthening their self-confidence as well as sharpening their sense of caution and far-sightedness. It is also hoped that they will learn to scorn injustice and face hardship, never to get discouraged, and become leaders in control of their lives and models of behavior to others. Hygo Ohannessian, May 1st, 1919, in Bethlehem. I don't know if my great-grandfather would have foreseen that his progeny would be here in the United States of America, whether he foresaw being displaced, his family being displaced yet again by another war in the Middle East, or that Armenians would remain scattered all over the world in a global diaspora. But today, we must renew our pledge. We must renew our pledge to scorn injustice, as Hygo Ohannessian wrote. As George Eliot said, our dead are never dead to us until we have forgotten them. Today, across our nation, in our nation's capital, another gathering takes place as our congressional leaders pledge their support for this cause of justice denied. We cannot let our congressional leaders and our political leaders to go this path alone. We must stand shoulder to shoulder with them and demand justice in one voice, in unison. That is our legacy. That is the promise we must keep to those who perished in the desert. That is the promise we must keep to those who survived the genocide but were not able to return to their homelands. That is the promise we must keep to everyone who hopes to one day again light a candle in an abandoned Christian church in Van, in Erzurum, in Kars, in Ardahan, in Yeghia. April is a month of renewal and rebirth. Look around you. It is everywhere. Spring is in full bloom. So must be our resolve for justice. Next year, our goal should be to mark the anniversary of the Armenian genocide in our ancestral homelands. Kaldari Vani Mech. That should be our resolve, that we mark and lay the wreaths on those sands where our ancestors are buried, whose bones remain there with no one to mourn for them. That should be resolve of not just every Armenian, but every American, God-fearing, of good conscience, who cares about justice. And if you think that's a novel idea, I'm going to close with a quote written on May 11th, 1918, a year before my great-grandfather wrote the foreword to his memoirs. It is a note from former President Teddy Roosevelt, who was writing the following letter to United States Senator Cleveland Dodge. The Armenian massacre was the greatest crime of the war, and failure to act against Turkey is to condone it, because the failure to deal radically with the Turkish horror means that all talk of guaranteeing the future peace of the world is mischievous nonsense. We must heed the words of our great American leaders and take action today. I hope that the President will keep his promise, but I know with the help of great leaders such as Ambassador Evans, Mayor, our supervisors, our representatives of our dear friends from Congress and Senate and the state legislature, we will prevail. Getse Hayaska, thank you Fresno for having me, and God bless you all.
We have a couple of gifts for our speakers that have traveled so far and taken so much time out of their busy schedules to be with us. And so, Amy, thank you. I just really enjoyed hearing your story and your grandma's. This is for you. Thank you. Thank you. And Ardy, thank you for coming all the way from Glendale to be with us. So I want to just remind you again of a couple of the events that will be going on today and later this week. At 1 o'clock in the free speech area at Fresno State. Please join the Fresno State students at 1 o'clock if you can. Again, Ambassador Evans, thank you for being here. He will be on KMJ between 1 and 2. And then I misspoke, and actually Derhar misspoke because I said 6 and he said 6:30. Wipe that out of your mind. This evening at Pilgrim Armenian Church, there will be a Hoki Honky service at 7, and the program with Ambassador Evans will follow that service. Again on Sunday, let me remind you of one more, April 28th, this coming Sunday, at 1 o'clock at the Talerian Monument at Masis Ararat. There will be a commemoration at 1 o'clock on Sunday. So if you can attend any of those events, would be wonderful. I want to thank you again for coming, but I want to thank the Armenian National Committee of America Central California for organizing this important event. And thank you all for coming, and I hope to see you later on today at other events. Thank you.